The Game Awards has come and went, came and gone, come and gone, and I gotta say that the number one word on my mind throughout the majority of it was mid. The audacity of Jeff Keighley to go live on Twitter for 3 minutes during rehearsal and hype this up, specifically the secrecy around it. Like, he made a point to be like, oh, this year in particular, we definitely have to keep things hush-hush and not reveal too much, trying to gas us up. He was like, there haven't been any leaks yet, which we're thankful for, and we hope there aren't any before the show begins, which we would generally react to that as like, oh, wow, no leaks, this is going to be a killer show and surprise from front to back. But it turns out the reason there weren't any leaks is because there wasn't anything exciting to leak. But to follow up first from my last video surrounding the open letter from the Game Awards future class calling on the Game Awards to address the situation in Gaza, I'm happy to report that there was no mention of it in the broadcast, saving many of us a headache. But unfortunately, that would have been almost preferable to all the boring-ass trailers we had to slog through, 90% of which had zero gameplay. I do want to make clear some important background info that I found out after I uploaded my last video, which is that at the time of that upload, only a third of the future class members had even signed the letter, and it's been the cause of some infighting from people in there who don't want to be spoken for in that way, don't want their individual contributions to the gaming space smoke-screened by an overarching political agenda, and or don't want to cede authority and group decision-making power to whichever person or people actually wrote the letter. I believe the number of signers increased to about half the future class on the day of or before the show, but it's still hardly a unified position. So addressing it by making a public statement on behalf of the future class that half of them don't even stand behind, because remember, the letter specifically called for the statement to be made in the future class's name, would definitely feel gross, and I'm glad the Game Awards chose not to. So enough of that, let's get back to what did happen. You know your world premieres are lackluster when the best part of the show isn't even a premiere. It was the cast of Alan Wake 2 performing their musical number from the game. I was in theater in high school, and everyone's got a little Broadway star in them buried deep down somewhere, or else Hamilton wouldn't have been the cultural phenomenon that it was, so don't even cap about that performance being cringe. It was delightful. There was exactly one time when I got visibly excited for a reveal trailer, and it was when Arcane Studios announced Blade, the Marvel character. The idea of playing as Blade in a Dishonored/Deathloop style game is conceptually fantastic, and the fact that they're taking on another vampire game already is kind of funny, as if to say, Redfall? We don't remember Redfall, we only make good vampire games. In the moment, I forgot that they were responsible for Redfall, so I had no reservations when I saw the trailer, but I'm hoping the reason it was so terrible was because they were focusing on Blade instead. As far as never-before-seen titles are concerned, some of their mild piqued interests were No Rest for the Wicked, developed by Moon Studios, the makers of Ori, God of War Ragnarok getting a free roguelike DLC mode that may or may not be fun, Windblown, an action game about cute cartoon animals getting gibbed to high heaven by the team behind Dead Cells, Dave the Diver getting Dredge DLC, which I just remembered is actually pretty hype, so you'll be diving for fucked up monster fish and serving fucked up monster sushi to fucked up monster customers. Jurassic Park Survival might be a decent first-person game, we know nothing about it, but it's got pretty good graphics and looks maybe promising. The first Berserker looks like a game I'd do a boss ranking for, giving off Soulsy combat vibes with a Code Vein aesthetic, and that's about it. I don't like 3D Dragon Ball Z games, so Budokai Tenkaichi 4 doesn't do anything for me, and the fact that the final world premiere was reserved for a new Monster Hunter game really doesn't bode well for my confidence in 2024 or 5. That's the most prestigious slot. That's where you put the big show ender, the moneymaker, the genital climaxer, and it's a Monster Hunter game? The audience is just not big enough to warrant that slot. Now, I say this, and then I go look up the Game Awards broadcast from 2021, only to discover that the final world premiere there was the Matrix PS5 fucking tech demo. Remember that? I didn't either. In 2022, it was Final Fantasy XVI, but I think it had already been announced before that, so that kind of kills the hype too. Still, you expect them to reserve it for the big guns, and I guess that was their biggest gun. I do want to talk about Hideo Kojima getting so much airtime for no reason. Can we stop treating this guy like he's God's gift to gaming? The reverence people have for this dude is ridiculous. He's a game dev. He didn't cure cancer. He just helped make some games that some people really like. I only see this happen with Asian game developers. Americans will literally fetishize and deify them. Whether it's Kojima, whether it's Sakurai, the guy behind Smash Bros., whether it's Miyazaki, the guy behind Dark Souls, whether it's Nomura, the guy behind Kingdom Hearts, although to be fair, that one's mostly made fun of in casual conversation for the directions he takes the story, but I know if he ever walked on stage at the Game Awards, people here would lose their goddamn minds. I simply do not see this level of holy gratification shown to any non-Asian dev. In fact, I can barely even name any outside of Todd Howard, and even he doesn't reach Kojima or Sakurai level, and he was behind everyone's most played game of all time, Skyrim. I gotta think Fallout and Skyrim are more popular than Metal Gear and Death Stranding, or Smash and Kirby, but I feel like a lot of American gamers think of Asian devs as like anime protagonists and just get fired up over them. It's kind of weird. Anyway, in Hideo Kojima's case, this stint was unwarranted even if you're a fan of him because he revealed like a 15-second trailer of nothing for his new game titled OD, which I assume, or at least hope, isn't even gonna be the final name. It was a trailer of a few different live-action people repeating the same nonsensical Mother Goose-esque lines with different emotional deliveries before one of them screams at a door opening and we don't see what happened. That's it. And Jeff sits there and asks him question after question for 10 minutes while he gives the most obvious and redacted answers possible, taking so much time to basically just say, we can't talk about this very much, but it's a horror game. While bringing out Jordan Peele, the guy who made Get Out and Nope and all that, to tout him as a collaborator, and after 10 minutes all we get to come away with is, it's a horror game, and I don't think it's coming until 2025, if that. Just a tremendous waste of time. Now on Twitter, I saw people complaining that the devs whose games won awards were given very little time to speak, seemingly in response to the Christopher Judge fiasco from last year where he went almost a full 8 minutes in his acceptance speech for Best Performance as Kratos. They brought him back as a presenter for this year, and he made a crack about his speech being longer than the latest Call of Duty campaign, which was a decently good burn, and made even funnier later when Call of Duty had a trailer for some new seasonal bullshit it's rolling out, like, you have the gall to show your face after you just got roasted. Take a seat, Call of Duty. You are my second biggest waste of money this year behind the $100 early access edition of Starfield that I luckily was able to refund to just play that shit on Game Pass instead when I got too hooked on Sea of Stars to pay attention to it. Tangent aside, the devs got no more than 30 seconds to accept their awards before they started to get played off, so I originally had a different take about this, which comes with some jokes, so I still want to get some use out of them. My original take was that when the recipients were giving their speeches and it started to go over and you could hear the GTFO music, I felt like some of them were treating it like background music to empower their anime monologue. They'd be speaking kind of normal, thanking people, and then the strings and the orchestra would come in and they'd alter their cadence. They'd be like, I'd like to thank my wife, my family, my friends, everyone who made this possible. And then the music comes on and they start going, and to anyone out there who's sitting there with an idea, doubting yourself, unsure if you're worthy of bringing it to light, let me just tell you to follow your dreams, realize your passions, and never give up. I expect them to unlock a new power level and fly off the stage to go fight someone. Like, dude, the music is supposed to shoo you, not inspire you. But some people thought it was disrespectful to the devs to give them such a short time limit, especially with the kind of stuff the show decided to give way more time to, like Kojima or a fucking Muppet, because of course there's another terrible skit with a Muppet. I can't tell if Jeff loves the Muppets or is being blackmailed by them. But dude, can you at least get a single comedy writer on the team to make something like that actually watchable? They had Gonzo on, who is apparently obsessed with chickens, and the whole 5-minute thing was how he loved Tears of the Kingdom, but he never beat it because he was too busy chasing chickens. And speaking of awful jokes, Sydney Goodman, who is known for anything but her comedy, came back to host the pre-show as she's done for years now, and somehow brought even worse quips than ever before, to the point where I, as a person who has been doing comedy for almost a decade, cannot even in good conscience define half of them as jokes. It's not a, oh, you didn't laugh, but it was still a joke, so you don't get to say it wasn't a joke, which is a sentiment I agree with. It was a case of, I cannot see or hear where the joke is in this sentence. It's like the jokes were invisible or in a different plane of existence. Anyway, hire me for the Game Awards, either as a writer so I can hear my jokes get butchered live, or as a host so I can deliver them the way God intended. Oops, that was another tangent. But so in light of the fact that time was so mismanaged to where they gave such air to things of no consequence as opposed to hearing devs cry about how much the awards mean to them, I am now on the side of the devs who did go a bit over because none of them even went to a minute, and they deserve to grab a little extra spotlight if enough of one isn't provided to them. Personally, I don't tune into these things to watch the same thank yous over and over, but I know it's a big deal for them, and it does feel a little scummy to cut people off so you can run ads for the next Call of Duty season or Fortnite thing we already know about. One last thing I wanted to comment on was Sean Murray of No Man's Sky fame coming on stage to talk about his next big game and making the same overhyped, unrealistic promises he did when he first announced No Man's Sky. It's like a tick for him. He has hype beast Tourette's. This dude cannot help himself from saying shit like, it's gonna be more ambitious than No Man's Sky. We're making Earth, but bigger. We're making mountains that are miles high, taller than Everest, that you can climb, and when you look out, you can see whole oceans and continents. We're making the first real open world, something without boundaries, and letting everyone play in it together. Dude, shut the fuck up. You're not doing any of that. Your game will have boundaries. Your game will have multiplayer server limits, if it even has multiplayer to start. And if your game has mountains that are miles high, it's not going to be fun to climb that shit. The footage looked like a combination of Palia and New World, just a third-person view of people walking around hauling lumber, doing their thing, engaging in townfolk life, or going off to fly around on a dragon and presumably conduct Unlocked Adventures. Nothing about it looked impressive or anything we haven't seen before, so I guess we'll have to wait 10 years for this game to be decent too. Jeff Keighley always tweets out after showcases asking what people would grade it out of A, B, C, D, or below, and I would give the Game Awards 2023 a strong D-. Definitely one of the worst ones I've seen. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Watch all my other videos and give them a D, and I'll see you guys next time.